Brigham Young University just locked in its biggest recruiting weekend ever. Don't believe me? I'll explain why it is and why you should be there on hand as BYU football and BYU basketball combine forces to hopefully lock down the best recruit in BYU history.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, first view as well. And a big thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us right here on your original daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. All summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's dive right in on today's show and some big news coming out in the recruiting front that involves both BYU football, but more importantly, BYU basketball. We have talked for quite a while now about AJ Dybantsa, the number one rated prospect in the 2025 recruiting cycle, a guy that is, let's just say, a generational type talent when it comes to basketball. There are people who are comparing him to the Paul Georges of the world. There are people who think that he will be a franchise type iconic player when he makes it to the NBA. Well, before he does that, he's got to play 1 year of college basketball. He's got a short list of 7 finalists that he named not too long ago, and he officially locked in the official visits he will make to those 7 finalists, and BYU is in that bunch. Now, I'm not going to spoil the surprise. We'll get it right out of the chute. BYU will be his final official visit of his recruiting official visits here. He starts it off coming up late this month. He'll go to Kansas State first, then he goes to Kansas, then North Carolina, Alabama in late September, Baylor in early October, and then Brigham Young University. He'll be visiting from October 11th to the 13th. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how does this involve BYU football, Jake? Well, that's right during the heart of BYU football season. And that weekend, October 12th, in fact, BYU will play host to the Arizona Wildcats at LaVell Edwards Stadium. Wildcats ranked 21st in the preseason polls. Obviously, a lot of hype around them with guys like Tateroa McMillan. Noah Fafita is their quarterback. They do have a new head coach in Brent Brennan after Jed Fish left for Washington. But that's a huge weekend upcoming, everybody. They also got doubly impacted when the announcement came that JJ Mandaquit, who is AJ Dybantsa's teammate at Utah Prep Academy down there in Hurricane, Utah. Now, AJ Dybantsa is the number 1 prospect in the entire country. He's rated a 100 out of 100 from 24/7 Sports. You cannot go higher than AJ Dybantsa has gone in the recruiting rankings. Well, his teammate, JJ Mandaquit, is a bona fide 4-star prospect, not as high on the recruiting rankings, but that tandem right there, officially visiting BYU on the same weekend, that is why I believe this is the biggest recruiting weekend in BYU history, period, end of story. AJ Dybantsa has the chance to really just tell the college basketball world what in the world is going on in Provo, Utah. We have seen Kevin Young revolutionize everything when it comes to BYU basketball of late. Obviously, breaking records with the amount of money he's reportedly hauling in as BYU basketball's head coach. Number 2, bringing in high-level recruits. In this past recruiting cycle, he signs Jaeger Denham as well as Cannon Catchings, who are both projected to be first-round draft picks in next year's NBA draft. And then he goes out and gets a guy like AJ Dybantsa, who has offers from sea to shining sea in this country. He could go anywhere in the entire country. And he's got BYU in the discussion to sign the top-rated prospect, maybe the best prospect in recent memory in basketball, college basketball circles. It's an incredible meteoric rise for BYU basketball. You want to one-up yourself, speaking of Kevin Young, go out and get AJ Dybantsa to sign with BYU. I don't think it's insignificant that BYU will have the quote-unquote final say when it comes to official visits with him coming to Provo in mid-October. That is going to be a lot of visits he'll be making in the interim, obviously, because like I said, he goes to Kansas State August 30th through September 1st. So he's kicking it off late this month, and it rolls all the way through October. He will have a thorough process he goes through evaluating all of his options. His parents are very much involved with this. His father, Ace, apparently has kind of been the point man on his recruitment. And his parents, and guys like Robbie McCombs from Vanquish the Foe reported this, they have visited BYU twice themselves, speaking of his parents. AJ himself has made an unofficial visit to BYU to check things out, but this will be the first time and really the only time BYU can roll out that quote-unquote blue carpet, as it were, to show him everything that BYU can do for him, and then fingers crossed they can lock him down. I am curious on this front because the signing window for the early signing period for basketball programs opens up in November. There was some thought that AJ Dybantsa might let this ride until the late signing window early next year, but it appears if he's going to do his official visits and have them wrapped up by mid-October, he could commit and sign by November. You want to really just kind of elevate the hype machine for BYU basketball, have the team that you have currently assembled, and then, oh, by the way, have the top-rated prospect, what many consider to be a generational type talent, sign with you in the early signing window in college basketball. You would see BYU basketball become like the epicenter of college hoop heads. I'm already hearing from people that are covering college basketball far closer than I do, and I cover it fairly close, especially when it comes to BYU, who've reached out to me and said, Jake, what is Kevin Young doing? And I just say, he's working miracles. He is absolutely working miracles with this program. And I'm not saying that any other of the coaches that have left BYU in the recent past, the Dave Roses, the Steve Clevelands, most recently Mark Pope, etc., they haven't done incredible things. They have. You saw Dave Rose in particular have a guy like Jimmer Fredette, who was the Naismith Player of the Year, the consensus Player of the Year his senior year, not that long ago. But Kevin Young has come in and completely revolutionized this. Kalani, Sitake, and the BYU football program, well, they can do their part and help out by getting a big upset win over the Arizona Wildcats. I think BYU at that point in the season, mid-October, could be a middling program, maybe 3-3 on this year. And if they can notch a win over Arizona with Dybantsa and Mandaquit in attendance, that will go a long way to helping them feel the love and obviously seeing the 60,000+ fans in LaVell Edwards Stadium. There'll be plenty of hype videos showing what the Marriott Center is like in college basketball season when it comes to the recruiting process here. But it's going to take a monumental effort, both from the BYU basketball side of things and then also BYU football pulling their weight to help BYU reel in the type of talent that AJ Dybantsa is. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility because the fact that he's even got BYU in that Final Seven says that he is serious about considering BYU. There's a lot of programs out there who are going to throw a ton of money at him. But as I understand it, NIL is not necessarily the focal point for the Dybantsa family. Yes, they're going to make plenty of money. It doesn't matter where he goes. He's going to collect a massive NIL check, and that would include BYU. I would imagine that BYU's boosters would absolutely write whatever check it took NIL-wise, but it's more about, in the case of Dybantsa, if you listen to what his parents are saying, the few comments he has made, he's looking for the right fit for himself to set him up for future success. He knows that the real money is to be made after a season playing college basketball. He's going to be the number one pick in the NBA draft, and if the salaries in the NBA continue to rise at the rate that they are going, this is a kid that, in theory, by the end of his NBA career, could have reeled in north of, count it, $1 billion in on-court earnings. That's not including off-court incentives, all the different deals you could get from Nike and the like. And the best part is, it sounds like Nike is very intent on getting AJ Dybantsa to sign a shoe contract with them. And oh, by the way, BYU is a Nike basketball school. It's a Nike overall school, but it doesn't hurt. There's a lot of good things going BYU's way. But that recruiting weekend, October 11th through the 13th, AJ Dybantsa, JJ Mandaquit, and who knows who else might be joining them on campus, along with some BYU football players as well. It truly could go down as the biggest and most monumental weekend in BYU recruiting history. And I'm the one that's going to be tracking along with many others, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about what you guys want to talk about. Got some questions that came in from our Locked On Cougars Insider group. Also opened it up a little bit to the Twitter sphere as well, our listeners out there on social media. We'll get to some of those questions. There's a very interesting one I want to talk about in particular, and it has to do with the venue that AJ Dybantsa will be taking in that BYU and Arizona game. And we'll get to all of that coming up next. We roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, all summer long, no matter what you're into, FanDuel has got the opportunity for you guys to bet on whatever it is you're interested in. If you're a Major League Baseball fan out there that likes to watch all the different games, you can cook up any type of bet you want. You're watching the futures odds when it comes to these. You just saw the NBA schedule drop. Your favorite NBA team, you think, hey, they're going to go over/under on a win total. It's all available for you guys to cook up whatever you're looking for on the app with our friends at FanDuel. The best part is all summer long, FanDuel has been hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily, and it continues on now. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So take advantage of the offer now. It's head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. Now, summer is quickly drawing to a close. You don't know how much longer these offers are going to be out there. It's a booster bonus literally every single day. So do not hesitate. Get over to FanDuel.com and learn more about it. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen and or view of the day. If you have not done so already, please make your second listen today. Our friends over the Locked On College Football podcast. My good friend Spencer McLaughlin is getting you ready for the entire season ahead in college football. A lot of looks at the future of college athletics as well. There's a lot of stuff going on with conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL, the new expanded college football playoff. You guys know what I'm talking about. But if you want the overall insider look at it, check out the Locked On College Football podcast. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And it's also a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. All right, let's talk about what you guys want to talk about. We're going to start off with questions from our Locked On Cougars insider group here. There's a great question that came in here, and it comes from Gerry. He says this. He simply asks, LES. And what he says is there any idea if there's any talk of fixing it up? Do you think it makes more sense to spend big bucks on overhauling it, to add on more luxury boxes, chairback seats, etc., or build a brand new stadium across the street in terms of the future for LaVell Edwards Stadium? Gerry, I'll just say this. The moves that BYU has made of late with the stadium indicate to me that they are going to ride it out for the foreseeable future. Some of you may have seen that they have torn out some of the seats in some of the corporate sponsor areas at LaVell Edwards Stadium, putting in seats where you have tables. You can watch the game from the lower west side, those chairback seats down the lower west side of the field. They've actually torn out the first row and have put up essentially a railing with tables there for fans. And I have it on very good authority that those have been going out to some of the high rollers when it comes to the NIL collective stuff with the Royal Blue Collective for BYU boosters. So the indication to me is that BYU is not planning on renovating, overhauling, tearing down LES, at least in the near future. My personal opinion on the matter is they need to do something and do it in the relatively near future, because I've said this before on the podcast. My dad likes to point it out. My dad was born the same year that the first footings were poured for what is now LaVell Edwards Stadium. Think about that. That's 60 plus years old. We have just seen Kansas, which had an older stadium than BYU that absolutely needed the renovations. They tore the entire thing down and they're rebuilding it. They're spending an entire year not playing in Lawrence, Kansas. They'll be playing games in Kansas City, both at Arrowhead Stadium as well as Children's Mercy Park, which is the home of Sporting Kansas City in Major League Soccer. I don't know necessarily if there's a good plan for that for BYU outside of BYU deciding to go and build a new LES while they play simultaneously in the current LES. Now, where would you build that? Well, there's this campus over there, Provo, the old Provo High campus, that in theory, I think would be the place to do it. But I think we're already seeing that there's indications what the future of Provo High campus is, because they just announced that medical school that BYU plans to build. Where are you going to put that? So essentially you're going to take half of the land on that and build a medical campus and also a BYU football stadium. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but maybe, just maybe, you build the football stadium, build a new athletics campus on the Provo High campus, and tell the medical school, as soon as we're done with the new football stadium, you guys are going over there where the old LES was. That's a personal opinion. I guess I have no insider intel on that. But I've also mentioned this in the past on the podcast as well. It is going to cost conservatively multiple billions with a B to build a new state-of-the-art football stadium. I'm just speaking frankly. And the way to get the funding for that is either you save up a lot of pennies, and BYU probably has plenty in reserve, but maybe not billions in the BYU athletic coffers. You get the LDS Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You tell them, hey, we're going to build a stadium similar to what we've seen with the Arizona Cardinals and the Las Vegas Raiders. Many of you probably have seen this. Their football field is natural grass, but they play in a dome. Well, they roll the grass out during the off period when they're not playing games out into the parking lot and let it grow in the sun. But when they play the game, they roll it in. The theory is that you make LaVell Edwards Stadium, the future LES, you make it a dome stadium. You make it a church building, for lack of a better term. It's like a regional conference center that just so happens to host BYU football games. There's the running joke, and trust me, I know people who work at BYU that there are a lot of people out there that think that the Marriott Center is simply a basketball facility that has church meetings in it. It's in fact the opposite, folks. The Marriott Center is considered to be a church building that just so happens to have basketball games played in it from time to time. That is the delineation. If you want the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to pony up a bunch of money, and we all know that they've got quite a bit of money, according to some of the reports out there, if you want them to invest in it, well, you declare it a church building and just so happens to host football games and has this little grass field that's growing outside of it from time to time. I'm not saying that's the plan. I'd like to see it happen. That's a personal opinion. I think that's the perfect way to go about it. But take of that what you will. It's like, and let me be clear one more time. Do not go and say that to your friends that Jake is telling me that people inside BYU are saying this. I'm just saying that people I know that would have more of an idea on this are saying that that could be the way it is approached from the BYU side of things. Now, you'd have to get the church to sign off on it. That's the other thing about this. So there's a lot of different things that would go into that to make it a reality. But it's fun to kind of talk about that and consider what it could be. All right, other questions coming in here. I've spent a lot of time on that one. Tyson asked this: in the spirit of high school football season, which, by the way, last night, an incredible game with Tim Few and Skyridge. I think there's conservatively 10 different guys in that game that were Division I athletes, and the Pula brothers, Keenan and Jaron Pula from Tim Few High School. BYU's got offers out to both of those guys. They're in the vaunted 2026 recruiting class. Based on what I saw last night, BYU do very, very well to sign both of those brothers because they were absolutely lights out in that game. That's just the small smattering. You have Gennaro Guilford Jr., who's playing for Skyridge. Keneal Sweetwine, the quarterback for Skyridge, is a high-level athlete. Darius Afalava, who's already committed to Oklahoma. Deshaun Toilolo. There were so many guys in those games. But Tyson asked this: in the spirit of high school football season starting this week, what local, current, and future BYU recruits are you most excited to track this fall? I'm just going to say, to answer your question in general, all of them. Now, I'm going to let you guys in a little secret. I'm going to be at the Westlake game tonight. Westlake is hosting Weber. Well, it just so happens there are two BYU recruits playing in that game. Tyler Payne, a linebacker for the Weber Warriors, and also Sali Fano, a pass rusher extraordinaire from the Westlake Thunder. I have hopes to get out there and talk to both of them after the game and have those conversations for you guys on next week's editions of the podcast. That's where I'm going to be. If you're out at Westlake, hit me up. I'd love to chat with you guys. We'll be on the sideline down there, and would love to have a chat with you guys and talk about it. All right, other questions here. I have a question to add from Robert here. Last year, my view was that we were playing better D at first and second down than giving up big plays on third down. Not sure the stats show how often teams got first down on first and second versus third. Any thoughts on that? I know that the perception is that, Robert, and you're right. There were a lot of big plays given up on third down when BYU felt like they could get a chance to get off the field. But the bigger point to be made is BYU failed too often on first down, where even though they were at third down, the down and distances, the metrics say that they were more apt to convert those third downs because of the success on first and second down. Yeah, there were multiple times. I remember BYU had teams in a third and decent situation, and the team got out of it because BYU's lack of a pass rush, inability to stop the run, whatever it might have been, killed them. But I think it was across the board. They just struggled at all levels, and the health status of a bunch of guys didn't help BYU in that circumstance. Next one, Bryce. What do you expect BYU's record to be after the first three games? Who poses a larger challenge between Wyoming and SMU? Right now, considering Wyoming star running back Harrison Whaley is out for the foreseeable future because he has to have a scope of his right knee, SMU is the bigger danger team to me. Now, I would have said SMU regardless, I think, in reality, because it's a new Power 5 team who's recruited very, very well. They use the transfer portal to great effect. Speaking of the Ponies, and having to go down there, which will be their first ever Power 5 versus Power 5 matchup when BYU goes down to SMU to Gerald Ford Stadium. Is it Gerald Ford? I think it is. But looking forward to that. But I do think SMU is the better of the two there. But I'm predicting BYU's record at worst to be 2-1. If BYU's 1-2, and I'm saying that SIU, I'm giving BYU Southern Illinois a win, which is, by the way, Southern Illinois ranked 11th in the preseason FCS poll for what it's worth. But I'm predicting BYU to be 2-1 coming out of the non-conference slate. I'd like to see them 3-0, because if they're 3-0, that would go a long way to helping BYU have a chance to really make a good run very quickly towards bowl eligibility, but we'll see what happens. Carter asked this, super not exciting question. That's kind of a funny qualifier there, but it looked like today was the first day BYU practiced in the royal blue helmets that they'll wear against Southern Illinois. I could have just not noticed. Am I correct for seeing that? You're correct for seeing that, because they actually pointed it out on social media. They were breaking in the royal blue helmets in practice. Now, the royal blue contrasting with the navy blue uniforms, the practice uniforms, was a weird look, but you got to wear the helmets to break them in, and BYU did that. So, yeah, that answers your question, Carter. They actually said it themselves that they were breaking those in. Andy asked this, more of a comment here. I'm feeling optimistic about the linebacker room. I saw a video from the video department put out, and the linebacking core looked like they were going to be a room full of pit bulls this season. Looking forward to seeing those guys balling out. Sidebar, Jack Kelly is built like a tank. Dude, you're right, Andy. The Jack Kelly hype machine, it's been pretty crazy out there, quite literally, but he very much looks the part. I don't necessarily think that there is a Ben Bywater type player in the linebacking core, but I think the sum total of the parts of linebacker this year is far better than it was a year ago. Yes, you lose Ben Bywater, and he was the heart and soul of this BYU defense, and you cannot replace him, but I'm telling you, the total amount of linebackers, the talent, the development of those guys in that linebacking room going into this season, they're going to be better as a unit overall than they were a year ago, even with guys like Ben Bywater, like, who am I thinking of? AJ Dybantsa, as well as Max Tooley. Those are very, very good linebackers, but those are three guys. I think this year BYU's got conservatively 6, maybe 8 guys that could match their production. That's why I'm with you on this. I do think the linebacking core is actually very, very good. Jesse asked this here. You briefly addressed some of the recruiting losses like Aaron Dunn. I know that we are in some other linemen, but it seems like we are a step behind in all recruiting in the state of Utah. Why is that? And what can we do to change it? We shouldn't have lost Smith Soden. We shouldn't have lost Rock Olson. We haven't offered Gennaro Guilford Jr. We need to stop losing these legacy kids and start pulling in some more high-end talent. Feel free to paraphrase. I actually read it straight up. So, Jesse, yes, they have lost some guys. For the life of me, I don't understand why Rock Olson was not offered by BYU. He was offered by Utah State, where he's currently committed to. He was offered by Utah, and his dad, speaking of hands, who's a dear friend and a coworker of mine at the KSL Sports Zone, they didn't offer Rock. I don't know what to tell you on that. Gennaro Guilford Jr. just got his first offer. It comes from, nope, not BYU, the University of Utah. Smith Snowden felt the love from Utah more than they did from BYU after his dad, speaking of Will Snowden, was a running back for BYU. The legacy prospects are absolutely important for BYU to lock down. I don't know why they're losing out on them. I hope they get Austin Pay. I sincerely hope, after losing out on Aaron Dunn and hoping to get Siosua Vete to commit, you got to get guys like Austin Pay to commit to this program. His dad, both of his brothers have played for BYU. That is a BYU family. You got to reel him in. I don't know, Jesse, why they haven't done better on this. There needs to be, by the way, and I just hear me say this diatribe all the time, more investment on the recruiting side of things. I just saw a post just the other day from BYU saying they're looking for student assistants to help out their recruiting efforts. Okay, having BYU students help out with recruiting efforts is one thing. But when other Division I programs who are not Power 4 programs have more full-time recruiting staffers than you have, speaking of BYU, G5 programs, I'm just alluding to this because I know it's a fact. It's going to me that BYU, the next thing they need to invest in is more recruiting personnel. Speaking of just full-time, their job is literally to send the love out to these BYU recruits. That's a very, very underrated thing, especially in this day and age. And it would help, I think it would go a long way to helping BYU retain some of that talent and win some of those battles that you're talking about, Jesse. That's just a personal opinion on the matter because my opinion doesn't count for much anymore, it feels like, when it comes to that. All right. So there you go. That's the first round of questions. We're going to finish up this edition of the podcast with more questions. And there's some very good ones coming in. And they're more about, okay, what are you feeling from fall camp? What are you seeing out there? We'll finish up this Friday edition of the podcast with those coming up next, right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, if you guys want to get out to whatever you want to watch, whether it's sports, theater, music, comedy, no matter what you're into, they've got the options for you guys. The best part is a lot of us want to go out there and watch Major League Baseball games during the summer. The best part about Game Time is they are an official authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Think about that. A better price the closer you get to the start of a game. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, that lowest price guarantee. Game Time is taking the guesswork out of buying your MLB or really any other tickets and help you guys have a great time with the experiences you're about to have by going out to the events you're going to. The best part is they've got last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals. It's easy to find and buy your MLB tickets and for every kind of event in your area as well. Like I said, no matter what you're into, they've got the options for you guys, and they have priority last-minute deals. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for those events, up to 60% off. It's incredible. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets today with our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen and or view of the day. If you have not done so already, we just talked about our Locked On Cougars Insider Group, the questions they submitted. If you guys want to be a part of that, we're having a really, really nice uptick in people signing up for the service. It's a great way to get updates when on at BYU football practices, the insider tidbits I'm hearing from practice as well. If you want to be a part of that, there's a link in the show notes below. It says join the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. There's a hypertext link. Click it, join, 14-day free trial, $5 a month after that, and join us today. It's going to be a really, really fun season ahead. If you guys want the inside scoop of what I'm hearing, coming to your phone and literally in the form of a text message. I'm holding on my phone here. My social, you can get those updates to come into you literally via text. It's an incredible way to interact with the show and have one-on-one conversations. All right. Final stanza of today's show. We're going to scroll through some questions here from our Locked On Cougars listeners on Twitter, or X, as most people call it. It feels like anymore. All right. So first thing here is we've got questions coming in for different things about this. So Jeffrey Warbert here says, would love to hear your thoughts on what you think the first and second team will look like for our wide receiver and tight end room. It's a great question there. Wide receivers, I think the top three right now in my mind are Darius Lassiter. I'd probably go Chase Roberts and then Cody Epps. Now, those are pretty easy guys, but don't count out the likes of Keelan Marion, JoJo Phillips, and Parker Kingston, because I think those are the next three. That's the 2 deep for me. But then the 3 deep, you go to Tei Nakua, Cody Hagan, Dominique McKenzie, Ty West, Weston Covey. There's a lot of bodies in that wide receiver core. And the nice part is they're deep, they're talented, and whoever ends up as BYU starting quarterback should have plenty of guys to get the ball to out at the wide receiver positions. Now at tight end, I'm projecting that Keanu Hill ends up as your number 1 tight end going into the season. Don't count out Reiner Swanson, Mata'ava Ta'ase, Jackson Bowers, Ray Paulo, Anthony Olson. Who else am I missing on that? Oh, Ethan Erickson. Ethan Erickson is a major dark horse here. Spent a lot of time on the sideline due to injury of late, but he has been shining in training camp so far. So keep an eye on Ethan Erickson in that mix as well. Mark Dunn asked this, how's the kicking game shaping up? Well, everything I've seen from Will Farron is that he's going to be Mr. Steady Eddie once again. He is booming kicks from what we've seen in training camp. So that should answer that question. I think the kicking game's going to be quite solid. Punt game, that's TBD. It sounds like it's a man-for-man race with both Sam Vanderhaar and Landon Rico. I'm projecting Sam Vanderhaar to win it because of his rugby-style ability to kick with both feet, but we'll see what happens there. All right, next one from Korean King Paul. It's a good time we got AJ's last visit and is with JJ. Absolutely. I think I already alluded to that earlier on in the podcast. Having both those guys together on the same weekend on a major home game for BYU football. Yeah, it's a really nice thing, especially when it comes to AJ Dybantsa picking BYU as his last official visit. That's huge for BYU. JT Kutcher. I think I butchered your name for years, JT. I apologize. If I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, please correct me once again. Because that's this. Thoughts on Harrison Taggart. Harrison Taggart has bulked up, and I actually love the way he is looking right now. He's kept all of his speed, but he's gained probably 10, 15 pounds, and he looks more like a true linebacker versus what I thought was a safety playing linebacker previously. That is going to help him a lot. He is going to be in the mix to be the starting middle linebacker. I think I might probably forgot to mention him earlier on when I talked about linebackers for BYU. He's a very, very capable player, and he looks very much the part this time around than he did a year ago. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, Hayden, Old Max Hall. Will the defensive tackles be better this year? And then Bob Moses asking this as well. Is Dallin Johnson doing anything in camp? Now, Dallin Johnson is a highly rated prospect who signed with BYU as a defensive tackle. He is running with the kind of the third string right now at defensive tackle, but he's a true freshman, kind of has feet wet at the college level. I think Dallin Johnson projects as a pretty good lineman down the line, but the defensive tackles I think are actually going to be okay. If John Nelson, Blake Mangelson, who else? We got Luke To'omalatai, David Latu, Josh Singh. Who else we got in that defensive tackle unit? But if those guys can just essentially hold their own, which is a big question, I think BYU's defensive tackles will be better. John Nelson, when he's healthy, is a very, very capable defensive tackle. The problem is he's dealt with health issues in the past in terms of staying on the field. If he can do that, I think it gives BYU a major boost. Now, the final word is going to go out. Actually, I got two more we need to hit real quick. Mojo, our good friend who's flying fighter jets for the United States Air Force. I said, I'm back listening now. It's football season. Mojo, come on, man. You don't want to hear me bloviate on during the summer months about basketball and everything else? Come on. I'm just joking. It says this. Who are the first-year guys at BYU that will make the most impact? We hear a lot about Kelly and Bohanon. Anybody else? Any true freshmen? I think there's a bunch of guys. Tommy Prasis at safety, Trey Alexander and Jonathan Cabea at cornerback, Pokai Haunga at running back, Reiner Swanson at tight end. On down the list we go. It really feels like there are a bunch of guys who are poised to make noise. And I didn't mean to rhyme that. It was not a pun, so pardon it. But I think that they have a lot of guys. They're chomping at the bit to show what they're capable of. So keep an eye on those. There's a bunch of them. And I think I've been talking about them quite a bit. So Mojo, had you been an everydayer all summer long, you'd probably already know those names. I'm just saying. And the final word kind of on that front goes to our good friend, Big Uncle Pooh. Tongue-in-cheek comment here, but can you believe people only listen to your great content during football season and miss 9 great months of your hard work? ? Yeah, I can believe it because it happens. Trust me, our numbers have absolutely skyrocketed since fall camp started, but it happens every year. More of you should be everydayers all year long. I am pumping out content 360 some odd days a year, 365. Now we get probably 270 episodes a year because of weekends and holidays, but it's a lot of content and I appreciate every one of you. I don't care if you tune in just during football season. I really don't care when you tune in. I love our everydayers, and there are a lot of you guys who are true everydayers, and I cannot thank you guys for that. But no matter if you're tuning in for the first time, you want to tune in for the very last time, or if you just tune in from time to time, thank you. Truthfully, thank you for all the support. It means the world to me. I'll just say this. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but we have Division I coaches who are currently coaching in the Division I ranks, not at BYU, who listen to this podcast regularly. They walked up to me and of their own volition said, Jake, I watch and listen to your content all the time. And I about fell over when I heard that for the first time from an opposing Division I coach. I was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, why? It's like, I just like to keep tabs on BYU, and you bring it every single day. And I can appreciate the fact that it's always there. So you know what? The love, I really do appreciate what you guys have. And like I said, I didn't even touch half of the questions that came in today. So thank you truthfully for all the support. It's been a really, really busy week, but I got another busy week ahead. It's football season, folks. It is go time. Basketball is rolling. Football is rolling. We've got plenty to cover. And oh, by the way, congratulations to the BYU women's soccer team. Picked up their first win of the season in their season opener, holding off Wisconsin 1-0. Allie Fryer, the preseason All Big 12 honoree, tallied the lone goal. Lynette Hernandez, I think is how I pronounce it correctly, BYU's goalkeeper, saved a PK to preserve the clean sheet for BYU. So a major season opening win for BYU. I know there's a little bit of a concern. They lost their exhibition games, but hey, you turn it on when it really counts. And BYU is now 1-0 on the season for BYU women's soccer. So the BYU sports season is officially underway as BYU soccer is underway. We'll have BYU volleyball very shortly, and then obviously BYU football in just about 2 weeks' time. So crazy to think that 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing a preview edition, getting ready for Southern Illinois and BYU on August 31st. But get excited, folks. That's where we are headed, and it's coming very, very quickly. All right. Once again, a big thank you to all of you for making it your first view and or listen of the day. And of course, a big thank you to all of you who are everydayers with us here as well. And a big thank you to all of you for supporting us every single week right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.